Imagine with me a woman in her 40s living in Wisconsin, a very ordinary life. She works as a graphic designer and a pet sitter, and suddenly she decides to become an international hit woman. This is not a cheap movie script. This is what actually happened. And the problem, she had no training, no experience, not even the common sense to carry out the crime. The result? A black comedy disaster from start to finish. Today we're telling the story of Amy Petrou, the woman who tried to be the veiled killer and failed miserably at every step. A story of betrayal, stupidity, and a poisonous romance that landed her in prison. Let's go. Hello and welcome to a new episode. Before we begin, if you want more crazy cases like this, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Now, straight into today's case. Our story takes us to Birmingham, England, an industrial city in the heart of England, with big cultural diversity and a large Pakistani community. There, in the summer of 2018, a small fight, an argument over a wedding dress, turned into a nightmare. In July 2018, Mohammad Alam and his son, Mohammad Nabeel Nazir, went to a clothing boutique in Birmingham to buy a wedding dress for a family member. The shop was owned by a man named Allat Mohammad. Alam and Nazir tried to haggle over the price, but the shop owner refused flat out. Things escalated fast. Words led to words, fists flew, and there was blood and beating. The result? Alam, the father, was struck a blow to the head that left him with permanent, major cognitive damage. A man's life ruined in minutes. Of course, the conflict didn't stop there. Windows were smashed, threats were exchanged, and the hatred ran deep and ongoing. Nobody was ready to forget or forgive. A whole year passed, but the rage didn't fade. Alam and Nazir wanted revenge. Not just revenge, they wanted to kill Allat Mohammad or someone in his family. The problem? They knew if they committed the crime themselves, the police would catch them immediately. So they decided to find someone completely unconnected, someone with no ties to the case, to do the dirty work and disappear. And here, folks, the real madness began. Nazir opened a dating app. Yes, just an ordinary dating app, and started searching for the perfect victim. Out of thousands of profiles, he found one, Amy Petrou. Amy Petrou was a 40-year-old woman living in West Allis, Wisconsin, USA. Her life? Very ordinary. She worked as a graphic designer and a pet sitter and volunteered on the local council. In short, a normal woman, no criminal background, no history of violence. But she had a dream. She wanted to leave Wisconsin and live a different life, a life of adventure and romance. When Nazir appeared in her life, she felt she'd found the knight to rescue her from boredom. Nazir was a British guy, handsome, charismatic, and extremely good at talking to women. He contacted her every day, video calls, romantic messages, promises of a beautiful future. And Amy, sadly, was so gullible. She fell for him fast. A few weeks later, she flew to England to meet him. She spent a month and a half with him, thinking she was living a Hollywood love story. But the truth, Nazir was preparing her for something else. During Amy's time in England, Nazir told her about the tragedy that had befallen his father. He described how his father had been viciously beaten, how his life was destroyed, and how justice had not been served. He painted a dramatic picture of himself as a dutiful son defending his family's honor. And Amy, with all her naivety, believed him. Not only did she believe him, she sympathized and felt she had to help. Then came the strange request. Nazir asked her to help him take revenge, not just help in a normal way. No, he asked her to kill Allat Mohammad or his son. And imagine a 40-year-old woman from Wisconsin with zero experience in violence agreed to such a request. Why did she agree? Because she was in love, and because he convinced her it was justice, not a crime. Their plan in their heads was simple. Amy would fly to England, carry out the murder, then return to America. Since she was a foreigner with no connection, nobody would suspect her. In theory, The idea sounded smart. In practice, it was a disaster from start to finish. In August 2019, Amy traveled to England again. She told her family and friends she was going to celebrate her 40th birthday in London. But the truth? She was going to commit a murder. She spent 2 months in England acting like a normal tourist, taking pictures in front of Big Ben and the London Eye, posting them on social media. But in secret, she was preparing for the crime. She bought 2 prepaid phones with cash. One she gave to Nazir and Alam, the other she kept. They went to the black market and bought a semi-automatic pistol. On 4 September, days before the crime, they went to an isolated spot by the highway to test the gun. Surprise! The gun jammed during the test. That should have been a clear warning that the plan was doomed, but they, in their stupidity, decided to press on. On Saturday, September 7th, 2019, the appointed hour arrived. Amy put on a black concealing niqab and rented an old Mercedes under a fake name, Becky Booth. Alam and Nazir drove to Birmingham in a red Volvo and watched her from a distance, which, of course, ruined the whole foreign, unconnected killer idea. Amy went to the target's house in the Yardley area and waited for 45 minutes. At 8:10 p.m., the son of Allat Mohammad, named Zakariya Ali, returned home in his car. Amy got out of the car, holding the gun, and walked toward him. She pulled the trigger, and nothing happened. The gun jammed again. Zakariya noticed what was happening, jumped into his car, reversed quickly. He rammed the door of Amy's car and damaged it, and then sped away. Amy stood there, shocked and in disbelief. Her plan had failed spectacularly, but instead of fleeing the country, she decided to try again. After the first failure, Amy abandoned the car on a side street and ran on foot. She called a taxi and, in an incredible lapse of judgment, gave her real phone number and her location. She went back to the hotel, changed clothes, put on colorful trousers and steel-toe work shoes. She took out her prepaid phone and messaged Allat Mohammad himself. "Where are you hiding?" No reply. She messaged again. "Stop playing hide and seek. You were lucky the gun jammed." Still no reply. Then, in the dumbest decision possible, she called another taxi and gave the driver the victim's address. The driver naturally assumed she was just an ordinary American woman. When she arrived at the house, she fired shots at the front windows and ran away. Luckily, the house was empty and no one was hurt. But the crime was captured on CCTV everywhere. The next morning, the streets were full of police. Zakariya Ali's house was cordoned off and the family was moved to safety. The police launched an intensive investigation. They found the abandoned Mercedes near the house with the driver's door bent and damaged. Inside the car, they found a black glove with DNA on it. The DNA did not match any criminal database, but the police saved it. They reviewed CCTV and found the same Mercedes circling the area the day before the attack. In the footage, a red Volvo was following the Mercedes. They searched the Volvo's registration and discovered it was registered to Mohammed Alam from Derby. Bingo! The police immediately knew who was behind it. They raided Alam and Nazir's home, searched it, and questioned them. Of course, they denied everything, saying they were home all night, but the evidence kept piling up against them. On September 9th, just 2 days after the crime, Amy flew from Manchester to Chicago. She thought she had escaped, but the stupidity didn't end there. Amy and Nazir did something even dumber. They mailed illegal ammunition to the house of one of Nazir's enemies in England, and Nazir anonymously called the police to report him. They thought they'd pin the crime on someone else. But when the police examined the parcel, they found the same DNA that had been on the glove from the Mercedes. Suddenly, the two crimes were linked to the same person. They traced the parcel to a post office in Palatine, Illinois, USA. They checked the CCTV there and saw Amy and Nazir sending the parcel. Even though Amy tried to disguise herself, the payment records exposed her, and the fake name behind Becky Booth was revealed: Amy Petrou. By 2020, Amy was on the British police's radar. Instead of turning herself in, she decided to flee the US. She chose a very distant country, Armenia. Why Armenia? Nobody knows. She probably thought nobody would find her there. She actually lived there for 4 full years under a false identity. But, and here's the comic part, she kept posting pictures on Instagram all the time. In 2024, a very clever British journalist managed to pinpoint her exact location by analyzing the direction of sunlight in her photos. Truly a brilliant idea. Armenian police went to her residence in July 2024 and arrested her. After 5 years on the run, she was extradited to Britain in January 2025. The trial began in late 2024. The evidence was overwhelming. CCTV, DNA, the abandoned car, the black glove, taxi records, mobile messages, witness testimony. Even the car seller remembered her because she wore a hoodie and flip-flops and used a fake name. With all that, Amy tried to deny everything. She claimed she was in Birmingham to celebrate her birthday and that the real killer was another American woman who looked like her and wore the same shoes. Of course, no one believed her. After 21 hours of deliberation, the jury announced Amy Petrou is guilty on all counts: conspiracy to murder, possession of a firearm, and illegally importing ammunition. As for Alim and Nazir, they were sentenced too. Nazir, 32 years in prison, Alim, 10 years in prison. And that, folks, is the end of the story of Amy Petrou, the veiled killer who failed at everything, from Wisconsin to Birmingham to Armenia, and finally to a British prison. A story of poisonous romance, absolute stupidity, and a perfectly failed crime. The lesson: crime doesn't pay. And in Amy's case, crime didn't even work. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments. Take care and see you in the next episode. Goodbye.